Congressman Jeff Van Drew is joining us now as well. Congressman Van Drew, wanted to get your take on this. I mean, obviously there's some questions that I'm sure you'd like to ask Dr. Fauci to follow up his reassessment of the origin of this disease. But at the same time, you got to have some questions for the intelligence community as well. The Trump administration clearly pressing them to get better answers on this last year. I was just indicating that the New York Times back then was calling this, an unfair pressure campaign on the intelligence community. But don't they have some questions to answer as well?
Well, this is what's unfortunate when politics becomes more important in a scientific issue than the science. President Trump and others, including myself, I spoke loudly about this because while I may not be a viral research, part of that viral research institute, I am a dentist, I am a doctor, and it just didn't make sense to me. People got sick at the facility. It was covered up at the facility. Why would you do that if it didn't come from there? Why did the World Health Organization not accurately, discuss what had happened and actually originally said that there was no problem due to China and that this was really nothing to worry about at all, which, God help us, fortunately, President Trump, stopped and called the point where he said, we cannot have people coming from, Wuhan and China over to the United States right now. And he did that early, and he was obviously called all kinds of names, as was I. They called it conspiracy theory and other things. Here's the bottom line. That's a lab that does this kind of work. It's a lab where people got sick. It's a lab which all the findings were covered up. It's a lab that was also covered up by the World Health Organization, and the entire process was covered up by the World Health Organization. Something is wrong here. We have a responsibility to America and to the world to find out what it is. And yes, it is a Wuhan virus. That's the new cool thing now. The new politically correct thing is not to really admit it came from Wuhan. It did. And I think it came from a lab. And let's be honest and let's really discuss that.
Yeah, I mean,
and let's investigate it.
Yeah, it really is concerning as well. If you called it the Wuhan flu or the China virus, you were censored or called, branded as a xenophobe for even suggesting those things. And what is wrong initially there, doctors like yourself, Congressman Van Drew, others were speculating this. It's part of the conversation that needed to happen, but we saw the chilling effect from that censorship. We're going to talk more about that coming up later in the show, but I wanted to ask you both, too, about the constant hypocrisy we see from the left when it comes to these lockdown orders and the mask mandates. The latest example we have comes from Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. She's now apologizing today for her failure to obey her own COVID restrictions again. Here's a photo pasted on Facebook, later deleted. It shows Whitmer, though, with a group of friends at an East Lansing bar. On May 15th, Whitmer issued restrictions prohibiting indoor dining at restaurants by parties of more than 6 people. But of course, Congressman Fallon, it doesn't matter for her because she's the leader of the state of Michigan. I still can't believe they took a picture where she's smiling either.
John, do as I say, not as I do. This is what we're tired of the hypocrisy. And it's not just Whitmer. It was Newsom getting caught, shutting down small businesses, people's livelihoods, and for safety reasons. It was never about safety and it was never about science. It was always about control. And, if he was so fearful, then why did he go out and break his own order? And then we had down here in Texas, we had the Austin mayor, Steve Adler, telling people not to travel while he was in Cancun, or in Mexico anyway, for his daughter's wedding. I mean, the hypocrisy knows no bounds. And we need to trust the American people to do the right thing and to use common sense.
Yeah, well, she doesn't clearly trust people. And, you have to appreciate her apology for the irony here. Here's what she said in part: because we were all vaccinated, we didn't stop to think about it. I am human. I made a mistake, and I apologize. I am human, Congressman Van Drew, but she doesn't want to acknowledge the human nature of people who don't want to be shut down in her state. This files under the category, don't accept advice from people with a Dr. Fauci pillow. She also likes to have that prominently displayed in the background when she does TV interviews.
Well, what's really a shame about this? Who else is human? All the people that were sequestered, all the people who lost their businesses. In the state of New Jersey alone, about a third of the small businesses went out of business. They're real human. They're people, real people breaking their back, trying to make a living, and we didn't work together on this. Again, it was all politics all the time. So whether it was Cuomo in New York or Murphy in New Jersey or Whitmer in this example here in Michigan or Newsom in California, yeah, it's okay for us because we're that special, group of people that at a much higher level, so we can put you out of business, destroy, your family and everything else that goes along with it because you don't have a source of income anymore. But you can depend on, the government from now on, and that's the new answer. That's not the answer. You know what the answer is? We're working together. That we should all be working together, hand in hand, trying to make these things work. And unfortunately, that's not what happened, and it still hasn't happened.
No.
And it just shows the nature of what we're doing now. We've got to change course.
Yeah, we have not seen that unity that was promised back in January. And, let's be honest, we never saw it in the first place. Let's talk to guys about what's happening at the Capitol. The National Guard finally leaving Fort Pelosi 5 months after the Capitol riot. What, if anything, will this do to bring back a sense of normalcy to the Capitol? It is still, closed to the public, Congressman Fallon. And, what exactly is going to be done with this $2 billion if the House doesn't get its hands on it?
That's $2 billion of wasted money, quite frankly. We've had a wall. It's interesting, too, that the left doesn't like walls on our border, but they love them when they see a perceived threat. And this is the people's house. That's what's different. I mean, the White House is where the president lives. The Supreme Court building is where the Supreme Court works. But the Capitol is different. This houses the people's house. We work for them. And to have more National Guard troops for months in Washington, D.C., rather than in Afghanistan, shows you just how misaligned their priorities were. And Jeff Van Drew, who's a great friend of mine, he knows because he saw it too. They were guarding us against Milky Way wrappers blowing around in the breeze. It was a colossal waste of money. I think $500 million on the National Guard troops, and now she wants to burn another $2 billion. It's time to say no more. Nancy, stop with your hypocrisy. Take off the mask when we're on the House floor so we can show a true example of leadership to show folks what it's going to look like after COVID.
And, there's still no plans to let the public back in the House. Is that correct? But are they letting the lobbyists back in there yet, Congressman Van Drew?
Pat is exactly right. This is the people's house. This was a show. This was a show. There was no need for the near high number of the thousands of National Guard we had. They weren't even taken care of properly in many cases. They weren't fed properly. And you know what? We brought them over here, and mostly they stood around and didn't do anything. By the way, with their guns unloaded.
Yep.
So they were really targets. Nobody ever talks about that. Guns unloaded and safeties on. They never would have had time if something did happen. And that was a shame. And that came from directly from Washington, those orders. The bottom line, again, is it was about politics.
Right.
Let's try to make, folks look bad. So we're going to put razor wire and barbed wire and fences and troops up. It looked like an Eastern Bloc, in the old days, Eastern Bloc country that was occupied and literally was under communist control. I was ashamed of the way it looked. It wasn't necessary. We didn't have that problem that caused that to be necessary. Again, badly done, a huge waste of money. You want to talk about the people. We took millions upon millions of dollars of the people's money. This stuff wasn't free. We don't have fencing, barbed wire.
It's the opposite of free. It's very expensive. And we also saw, too, how poorly a lot of those guardsmen and women were treated when they were there in the Capitol. Gentlemen, we got to run. We are out of time, but great to see you both. We appreciate it, both of you. Congressman Jeff Van Drew and Pat Allen. All right.